Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Scaling Impact, Lessons from 14 Cities on Local Home Repair Programs. My name is Jess Wunsch, and I'm the Director of City Engagement at the Housing Solutions Lab. If you're joining us for the first time, the lab is based at the NYU Furman Center. We work directly with cities around the country to plan, launch, and evaluate local housing policy that advances both racial equity and resident health and well-being. Our work generally falls into three categories: direct engagement with cities through peer learning and technical assistance, research partnerships to inform and learn from innovative policy at the local level, and original policy and data analysis published on our website, housingsolutionsLab.org. We will now turn to our agenda for today. First, we will begin with brief remarks from Martha Galvez, Executive Director at the lab, who will share some background on our growing body of work around local home repair. Next, I will share the main findings from our new policy insight and scan of over 40 programs. We then have the unique opportunity to have a conversation with two members of the lab's home repair community of practice, McGinn from Louisville Metro Government and Nefertitti Jackmon from the City of Austin, who will share how they're approaching strengthening and scaling home repair in their cities. Finally, we'll have about 10 minutes for your questions for us and for our panelists. So as we move through the session, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box at any time, and we will get to as many as possible. With that, I'll turn it over to Martha.
Okay, thanks so much, Jess. And thanks everyone for being here today. It's really wonderful to see so much interest and so many people joining us. Thanks for spending your lunch or breakfast with us today. We are really excited about this milestone for us at the lab, and I'm just going to spend a few moments giving some context on how we got here today. We'll be talking about really three related pieces of work from the lab that have been more than 2 years in the making. Earlier this month, we published two new resources, our policy brief and program scan that Jess will be talking about in detail, reflecting what we've learned from our work with cities on home repair over the last 2 years. And we also, at the start of the month, announced that we're accepting applications for a third home repair peer network to help cities pursue some of the innovative reforms that we discuss in our paper and that we'll be talking about today. And Jess will share more about that in just a few minutes. But we originally began this home repair work with support from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's Impact Investment Team, which supported several organizations in this space to explore home repair as a strategy to help Black homeowners retain their homes, build and preserve wealth, and pass that wealth on to their families. And we're really grateful to them for their investment in this body of work and for really nudging us into this policy space. And as we began working with cities on their home repair programs, our understanding of the potential benefits associated with them and connected with home repair investments, and also the challenges facing practitioners in the field really expanded. Home repair is certainly a potential tool to support low-income homeowners of color and to attempt to narrow home ownership and wealth disparities in cities. But we learned from city leaders that it also holds promise as an important affordable housing preservation strategy broadly to keep aging housing stock occupied and habitable. It's also a potential neighborhood stabilization strategy, helping avoid vacancy and blight in low-income communities. It can support aging in place and help avoid illness and injuries tied to unsafe living conditions. It's an energy efficiency intervention and can help homeowners make their homes more resilient to climate change, and I could go on. But even as the nation is becoming more and more focused on increasing housing supply through new construction, which is incredibly important, we're also hearing the cities that we are working with are laser focused on the importance of maintaining the existing housing stock as a core component of their successful supply strategies. We are not going to build our way out of a housing shortage if we're simultaneously losing units each year to disrepair. So, local home repair programs are one of the tools available to local governments to maintain the existing housing stock and keep low-income residents safely and stably housed. And these efforts can be complex and challenging, and we'll hear some about that today. We've also been incredibly excited and motivated by the momentum and innovation we're seeing in cities around the country to streamline and modernize their programs. So we're really excited to share some of what we've been learning from leaders in the field like McGinn and Nefertitti, and to invite more cities to join us as this work evolves. And Jess will talk more about that opportunity at the end of this talk. So with that, I'll stop and I'll turn it back to Jess, and I will be back to help with the Q&A in just a few minutes.
Great. Thank you so much for the framing and context, Martha. I'm now going to share our presentation on our latest policy insight, Strengthening Home Repair Systems, Lessons from 14 U.S. Cities and Counties. So a little bit of background on how this resource came together. It draws heavily on the insights we gained working directly with the 14 cities and counties participating in our home repair community of practice and findings from our recent scan on over 40 programs administered by these cities and counties. We want to thank the community of practice members. This is a map showing who they are, who are so dedicated to growing their impact locally and have shared their expertise with the lab staff and also with each other over the last 2 years. We really wanted to understand on a practical level how home repair programs work, what existing research has to say about the consequences of unmet repair needs and the benefits of home repair investments, the challenges that practitioners face in administering these programs, and finally, some of the emerging approaches that cities are taking to improve service delivery, enhance coordination among stakeholders, and make the most strategic use of limited resources. So if you're new to home repair or you've been working in this space for many years, we hope that this resource has something for you, whether it's the value that home repair initiatives may bring to your city, the summary of the research, the mechanics of how programs work, or the examples from cities and programs around the country. Why do home repair programs matter? We all know that the U.S. housing stock is aging and that unaddressed maintenance needs pose substantial health and financial risks for households. We also know that these risks are not evenly distributed. Lower income households and Black and Hispanic residents are disproportionately exposed to substandard housing. Homeowners are also struggling with rising costs of home insurance, property taxes, and utilities, and home maintenance costs themselves have also increased. When it comes to financing repairs, lower income households have limited access to credit or home equity loans. In low and moderate income neighborhoods, applicants for private home improvement loans and homeowners of color in particular experience disproportionately high denial rates. Unable to finance repairs, the households may continue to reside in unsafe housing or may move in with friends or relatives, leading to the eventual loss of their home and the ability to transfer wealth across generations. On a neighborhood level, deterioration can contribute to vacancy and abandonment and declining property values. And citywide, the loss of aging housing units can further housing shortages and offset any gains in new housing production, increase pressure on rental markets, and reduce municipal tax revenue. Through our scan of these programs, we found that cities consider a variety of factors when designing programs. The type of assistance to offer, whether it is through grants and or loans, deferred or forgivable. The type of repairs, which requires careful balancing of competing goals of serving as many households as possible and addressing the full scope of repair needs facing a given home. The eligibility criteria and other factors programs might use to prioritize households and homes for repair, such as specific populations, geographic areas, the urgency of repairs, or the length of residency in the home. With many eligible households waiting for assistance, some for several years, programs might use a first-come, first-served waiting list or a lottery system once initial eligibility criteria have been met. And finally, thinking about the many stakeholders who are and should be involved in these programs. Some might manage programs and provide services directly. Some cities might, manage and provide services directly, while others might contract with multiple nonprofits to coordinate outreach, intake, and eligibility determinations, and to complete the repairs themselves. Through this work with cities, we've consistently heard about three common challenges that we want to highlight today. That the available funding falls far short of the need and is often reliant on, but also constrained by federal requirements. Many programs rely heavily on federal Community Development Block Grant or CDBG funds, but may only provide assistance for repairs up to a certain amount before triggering additional requirements, regulatory and administrative requirements, which might limit the ability to tackle multiple repairs in a home. We also heard that ecosystems are fragmented and administratively complex. So multiple programs may serve similar populations within the same city or jurisdiction while advancing different goals, priorities, and funding requirements. Households may apply to several programs for the same repair needs, submit applications to programs for which they are ineligible, or encounter inconsistent application processes or eligibility requirements. Finally, we also found that home repair ecosystems often lack a coordinating agency or shared data infrastructure to track applications, households, completed repairs, or investments across providers. As a result, policymakers, funders, others at the municipal level have limited evidence to inform future investments. I also want to acknowledge that there are additional challenges that municipalities and nonprofit providers face that aren't listed here. Specifically, challenges with securing contractors and a trained workforce to carry out repairs, which we know is crucial to delivering these services. So you may recognize some or all of these challenges in your own home repair programs, and we're eager to share about the ways, or to hear about the ways from you about how you're working to overcome them. We're now going to share some of the emerging strategies that we've heard from cities to achieve greater impact. Many cities are pursuing additional state, local, and philanthropic funding to reach more households and provide more flexible services. Braiding funding sources can also enable programs to move beyond single small system fixes, such as a single roof repair, and move toward more comprehensive whole home interventions that consider multiple systems within a home and address these different systems beyond just health and safety and basic habitability standards. A growing number of cities are also leveraging local revenue sources, such as general obligation bonds or housing trust funds, to sustain and expand home repair programs. And the idea behind these local resources is that they provide greater flexibility to, use multiple sources of dollars in order to maximize the repairs that the folks are able to do in a single home. Some cities are launching networks or coalitions to better support collaboration across the various stakeholders that are involved in home repair. We see a few programs launching centralized intake and eligibility screening processes, which can streamline access to services, improve the matching of households with household needs with the available services and resources, reduce burdens for households and program administrators, and help providers coordinate investments. And we'll be talking a little bit more about some of these strategies in a little bit with our panelists. Some cities are launching networks or some cities are strengthening their data capacity as well by investing in improved data collection and sharing information across programs. These efforts include conducting citywide home repair needs assessments, capturing more comprehensive information about stakeholders served, and sharing data across local providers to inform strategic planning and also to help stakeholders apply and go after additional funding sources. And finally, home repair is sometimes perceived as an isolated effort to help individual households rather than a broader tool for advancing housing preservation and community development goals broadly. So by aligning home repair investments with city priorities, program leaders can focus on a unifying policy objective that they might be trying to tackle in their city, such as preventing displacement or addressing vacancy or preserving, low income or moderate income homeownership opportunities. And there are many more insights and examples to read about in the policy insight and scan, which we hope that you'll turn to. So with that, I'm going to share a little bit about our upcoming home repair peer network, which if you're a city on this call and you're working on strengthening local home repair, we want to hear from you. We are accepting applications and expressions of interest for our network through July 24th. Up to 8 cities will be selected to explore many of the strategies we just highlighted to strengthen local ecosystems. And cities, just a little bit of like logistics, cities will meet virtually each week during September and October, leading up to an in-person convening in New York City that'll be focused on action planning and workshopping ideas in person, along with members of our ongoing community of practice. And once the network itself wraps up over the 2 months, there will also be an opportunity to join this ongoing community of practice. Some of the folks we'll hear from today. So please do feel free to reach out with any questions about the network. We're going to share the link so you can read about our work in this area and can quickly express interest using the form by July 24th. So that is our presentation. We're going to now turn to a conversation with our panelists who are a part of the home repair community of practice that we mentioned and have been implementing several of the emerging strategies highlighted in our policy insight and program scan. So I'm going to do some introductions. Megan McGinn is the Housing Stability Manager at Louisville Metro Government. And Louisville has been undertaking a new shared data collection and monitoring strategy through a home repair needs assessment and has been working to build stronger and more collaborative relationships with local home repair providers and stakeholders across Louisville. I'd also like to welcome Nefertitti Jackmon, who is the Community Displacement Prevention Officer at the City of Austin. Austin has recently prioritized home repair within the city's broader anti-displacement strategy and is also leveraging large-scale local funding sources in order to scale impact. So thank you both so much for joining us today. So we'll dive right into questions, and I want to remind folks who are in the audience and watching, as you think of questions for our team and for Nefertiti or Megan, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and our team will make sure that we see them. So starting out with just motivation for this work, for the growing work that you're doing around home repair. For Megan, why did you undertake a home repair needs assessment and launch a home repair coalition? And then for Nefertiti, why has home repair become a priority for the city?
Thank you, Jess. I just want to make sure you can hear me okay. All right, thanks. The short answer is that Louisville needed to repair the home repair program. And 2024 was a pretty pivotal year for our home repair programs. Our director, Laura Grabowski, she had seen Karen Black present in Atlanta and was very energized by what she learned. But in 2022, we just weren't quite ready to move forward with a needs assessment. I moved to the home repair program in 2024 as well. And at that time, there were about 400 cases that were in a backlog and had been waiting for 2 to 3 years for service. We needed help, and we worked with two local home repair agencies, New Directions and Habitat for Humanity. They came to our rescue and assisted over almost 200 of those cases. And then internally, we chipped away at the remaining cases. In April of 2024, we joined NYU's Home Repair Peer Network, and we also joined the Coalition for Home Repair, which was very helpful as well. And the folks at Habitat held their first, what would become the Louisville Home Repair Network. So all these things were kind of happening separately, independently. And this was really the impetus for that home repair needs assessment. We knew it was time to make a change.
Okay, and thank you. For us, the displacement prevention division was probably started in 2021 or so, right after COVID. But the home repair division was sitting within our real estate department. And I think that was prior to setting up the displacement prevention division, the main space for any programs or services within the housing department. But it was soon leadership realized that home repair services are, in fact, a displacement mitigation strategy, and they needed fresh eyes, right? The home repair work had been going on for many years, for more than 20 years or so. But they thought by realigning the work with city priorities, which displacement prevention was certainly one, and we had new dollars that were available. I began to work with the team and integrate their work with our larger comprehensive displacement mitigation strategy and understanding how we could take a targeted approach to look at communities and neighborhoods that were facing greater displacement pressures and then begin to focus dollars and direct resources to communities where we were seeing greater displacement risk. And so, what we are currently doing, which I think is in alignment with that as well, is we're launching a small landlord home repair program or repair program. I won't call it home repair. Um, Currently, our home repair programs are all directed to homeowners. But as you mentioned, um, home ownership is one way that many communities, and especially Black and Brown communities, this is their primary way to retain and preserve wealth. And what we saw, a lot of small, what we would consider NOAA properties, naturally occurring affordable housing, are in areas where small mom and pop shops or homes existed. But these people have been prohibited from participating in the home repair programs. And so now we are allocating displacement prevention dollars, part of our Project Connect initiative, to support small landlords as well. So, therefore, expanding both our home repair efforts and our displacement prevention strategies as they are aligning, they're coming increasingly in alignment with one another.
Thank you so much for that background, both of you. Um, Turning to McGinn and following up about the home repair needs assessment, can you share a little bit about what the findings from the assessment were and what the development of this coalition of stakeholders has meant for Louisville's home repair programs?
Yes. So May 8 Consulting, Karen Black, prepared this home repair needs assessment and a wonderful executive summary. And it really breaks down the findings into three main areas: coordination and funding, data, and program design. We've taken action on the majority of these, but there's still, of course, more work to do. The first regarding coordination would be to strengthen Louisville's home repair ecosystem. So our Louisville home repair network is really thriving. We are meeting regularly. We are still finding more agencies to join us as well. So really just sitting down together that first time just was so enlightening. And then to shift Metro government's role from direct service to funding and coordinating. And that was such a welcome recommendation, and we immediately took action on that. So we are funding those two local partners for emergency home repair programs and critical home repair programs. We are only keeping in-house lead abatement and repairs related to code violations, because that does involve collaboration with other government departments. And expanding that funding piece, that is definitely a work in progress, especially that engagement with the philanthropic community. So that's an area that we're still working on. In terms of program design, that emergency program, we launched that immediately to fund the agencies, and that was successful, and our plan is to continue that. And then the shared intake model that you did mention, our office funded an extension of Metro United Way's 211 hotline. They now have a home repair specialist, and they are making those referrals, doing that centralized intake process. And we couldn't ask for a better partner. They have done a great job in a really short amount of time. Of course, that's still, a work in progress as well, but we've been super pleased with how that has progressed. And as you might imagine, they have fielded hundreds more calls than they planned on. So the need is really out there, and so we're very excited to be able to fill that role there. And with the shared intake model, I did also want to mention Dr. Ryan LaValle in North Carolina at UNC. We met him through the Home Repair Coalition's conference, the Reframe Conference, which is also a wealth of information. And he has been so generous with his time and has been doing this. He has made it a verb, coalitioning. He's been doing that for a long time, and so he's been really insightful as well. Then to also increase access to home repair loans. So we have one CDFI that we have funded for home repair loans. They're doing great. And we are talking to another small organization for home repair loans for those folks who don't quite qualify for home repairs, but they don't have extra money laying around to fix their roof. So those are really small pilot, but it's a start, and we're excited about that. And then the data, tracking the data and creating evaluation reports. So we are tracking data. That light bulb moment was sort of all of us tracking the same data, and all the agencies in the network spelling things the same. 22nd Street, is it a 2 and a 2, or do we spell out the words? Avenue and street, things like that. Just some really practical and actionable things that we could fix to make that data easier to analyze and to share amongst agencies. So those are some of the big takeaways. They are the big takeaways from our needs assessment.
Thanks so much, Megan. Turning back to Nefertiti, and following up on what you mentioned about the city's priorities on home repair, can you talk a little bit about the local revenue source that you're now able to use as of a few years ago to fund local home repair initiatives, and what that has meant for home repair?
Yes. One of the things that I constantly challenge my team to do is answer the question, how do we get to yes, right? How do we get to yes? Saying no to a person, they don't qualify, we don't do these repairs, we don't have the funding, that is often very easy. But the question that I challenge staff to answer is how do we get to yes? And that's a something that our city manager, when he came in, he was saying the same thing. How do we get City of Austin staff to say yes more often to our constituents? And I think one of the primary, not the only, but one of the primary ways we could get to yes is by using local dollars and other dollars beyond the federal dollars that we have. And so, in addition to the CDBG funding that we use, we also use our GO bonds, which you mentioned, and that allows us roughly an allocation of $5 million each year to provide grant programs. These are not loans, they are grants to preserve housing affordability as well as safety. Um, and it allows us to be flexible in terms of who can apply to the programs, and then also what type of programs we can set up or establish. And I think we limit ourselves, and this is one of the things I try to challenge our staff. Like there could be a range of programs. So the great thing is, in addition to the geo bonds, we also work with another city department, Austin Water, to address private lateral and other plumbing issues. We get an annual allocation from them. And then we also will be using Project Connect dollars, which is roughly $300 million of anti-displacement funding to address transit-induced displacement pressures. And so the goal with those dollars is to use those dollars, and these dollars are geographically constrained to places where the new light rail will be coming. And so there are sometimes restrictions, but what we see is with having federal dollars, we can do so many more things. Like I would not be able to establish a small landlord repair program with federal dollars. There is no avenue for that at this time. But using local dollars, we have some leverage to set up new programs. And I'll give you another example of a program. Well, it's not a program, it is a service. We also do relocation for people who might need to be out of their homes, for who are undergoing more extensive renovations. And those funds are sometimes people have to take out loans, but we were limited to like $3,000 sometimes. And I'm like, when people are out of their homes for such a long period of time, that does not cover the cost. And what we saw happening, many families would move in with relatives or friends. And I challenge my staff to understand, can we think about what might be happening in those scenarios? And I know it's probably beyond what most of us think about is our responsibility, but did we do an assessment of the needs of the household? Are there small children? Are they going to be a burden to the relatives or friends? But we had tenant relocate. We had a fund for some relocation programs from other local sources. So I challenged, and we coordinated with another part of my team to provide relocation assistance. And this way, we don't put anyone in harm's way. People who are going, having their homes repaired, they're not a burden on family members or friends. And so the goal is to encourage staff to be innovative and think about both also the unintended consequences of some of the things that we are doing and the decisions that we are making. So diversifying and blending funding has been a huge asset and a strength of many of our programs. And then finally, just being able to align home repair programs with other city priorities, displacement prevention, preserving naturally occurring affordable housing. It's a huge priority right now in our city, but it has allowed us to really, what I say is, it has helped us to get to yes more frequently than saying no to our residents.
Thank you, Nefertiti, for sharing about um, the impact really of having this broader set of funds that it's had on the home repair programs and also the ways that you're aligning these programs with other city programs as well.
Mhm.
I'd like to turn that question back to you, Megan, a little bit about thinking about um, how you're able to align programs and align home repair services. And I know that was a big focus of the housing needs or the home repair needs assessment of thinking about who does things, which organizations, which entities do things best, and can best deliver at the scale that you're operating at. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how you've been thinking about partners in this work and how you've been thinking about the different types of programs that you're offering or working in partnership with others on.
Sure. I mean, I think the broad statement is sometimes the metro government, we just need to get out of the way. And and even by funding agencies, with the funding being CDBG, being federal funding, there's still there's a lot of steps to go through. It's not as open and unrestricted as general funds, for example. So, um, when we put out the RFP for the funding for the home repair programs, where we ended up funding Habitat for Humanity and New Directions, um, we asked them to put together proposals. What kind of home repair programs do we need based on their feedback and their data? So they were able to look at their waiting list. They were able to look at the folks who had reached out that they were unable to assist. That was a great lesson from Karen Black, is who are you not serving? How can we better assist them? So again, through that needs assessment process, we were able to understand better what the community needed and wanted, and to listen to our community partners, and of course to just get out of the way a little bit. So with the data collection as a network, that has been an interesting process, because just some really practical considerations are that we don't all have the same software. Of course, city government software does not play well with others. Our email doesn't even play well with others. So our folks at Habitat have really taken on that task, where all the network partners submit data to one point person. And first, we had to agree upon those shared data points. So that was some discussion, where it's the usual data points that you might expect, but some of the wording we needed to come up with and agree upon, especially for type of repairs. That was a lot of discussion. So we came up with some categories. And then quarterly, we are submitting our data in via a spreadsheet, pretty basic. And then we have one person at Habitat. He is taking on the responsibility of putting that data into their software to make those pretty graphics and help us, analyze it. So that has been helpful. I think it's reduced our duplication of efforts. And it just helps us understand, how many cases, and specifically in what areas, where are we primarily working, where is the need. So the data collection has been, I think we're coming up on about a year now of data collection. So we're in the early stages of learning what that data means. In some ways it's reaffirming some things that we did know already. But that's of course also, helpful for us to confirm. So I think, did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to throw the stakeholder partnership question to you, Nefertiti, in Austin. I know a lot of the home repair work at the city level, like it's done by the city. But what are your kind of not necessarily, what are your what are your interactions with other stakeholders and how has that evolved over time?
Oh, I would say it is actually it is pretty good. I would say it's very much evolved. I will say, with the exception of data collection, that's where we need to get to. And but in terms of our partnerships, we actually work. Most of our programs are through a home repair coalition. It's roughly six nonprofit organizations that includes Easter Seals, Meals on Wheels, the Austin Area Urban League, Interfaith Ministries, and I'm forgetting too many others. But the good thing is we have regular meetings. We meet on a monthly basis. They have been meeting for I don't know how many years. I think the first time we received geo bonds, and it was a space to, and I recently found this out because I we had a meeting, a convening last month, and I wanted to understand how can we better partner with one another. And what I found out, I thought we needed to set up a separate meeting. They're like, we already have our monthly home coalition meetings. And I thought it was for everybody else. They said, no, this is a space we created for you. They said, this is a space we created for the City of Austin Housing Department. And so, what I didn't realize, like I said, I had inherited this group. We were not taking advantage of that space to lean in and offer information and sharing. But in addition to the nonprofit partners that convene monthly in that home repair coalition, it's also Austin Energy who participates in home repair programs or have funds. It's Austin Energy. It's also our code department. Um, there's another Austin Water, but they said the main stakeholder, they told us this, that we want to hear from the housing department. So it is an opportunity for us to collaborate together and lean on our stakeholders. Um, and I think it's been a really great space and opportunity for us. What I see it is these are our trusted partners. They have reach into the community in ways that we do not. We are looking at we have one program that we operate internally, and that's our home repair loan program. So we operate that program, and that's when we're doing a demolition and construction where we're tearing it down. We do that program all in-house, and we're looking to phase in some other programs that we may or may not handle internally. But I think for us, the model with our nonprofit partners it's been very successful to date. And they
Thank,
work really closely together. I'll just share that. They work closely together. So that has, and they hold us accountable and we do the same, so it's been a good space.
thank you for that. Well, I think we're coming down to the last few questions that I have, and then our team is working hard to take a look at the Q&A questions and pass them over this way. Um, so I think the two kind of final summarizing questions that I have for you both are just sharing a little bit more about your experience participating in the home repair peer network and just generally what you took away from that opportunity, how it's informed some of your next steps, and also just any advice you have for cities who are kind of facing similar challenges in, and that many of us are, right, in overcoming these challenges in the home repair space, and just suggestions that you have for them to think about.
I'll
You,
I'll
you want to go
go and
first,
yeah,
Nefertiti?
sure. I would just say it was a great opportunity to stop and reflect, right? Because we're often, I know many of us are doing the work, you're busy doing the work, but you don't get, and you think you're doing good work and you know you could do more, but sometimes you challenge yourself. Do you have the time to stop and reflect to see what that looks like? Hearing from the other cities and organizations who were in the program, like I know we need to address our data needs and data collection. We are collecting everything in Excel spreadsheets and an access database. but then you're like, when do I get the time? But hearing what some of the other organizations are doing, cities are doing, it it helped me to prioritize some of our needs in areas where we needed to refine and begin to um, make some improvements. I would say that. And then I know I recall hearing from San Antonio some of the workshops that they were providing to their homeowners. And that was really inspiring to me. So it gives you a different perspective to see how might I continue to sharpen our program and enhance the program. And then finally, it also let me know some of the challenges we were facing. We weren't alone. There are other cities that are facing similar challenges. So that was encouraging, believe it or not, to say, we're not in here and here's some other people facing similar challenges.
Thank you so much. Megan?
Yes, agreed. So participating in the NYU Peer Cities Network was so helpful to know that we were not alone. That is my takeaway exactly. And sometimes it was a small problem or issue or hiccup, and sometimes it's a much larger infrastructure, or what are we doing here problem. But yes, I think for me personally, because I was new to home repair in 2024, right when we joined the peer network, um, it was just so eye-opening to me that there were similar, consistent issues, challenges, and solutions in these cities. And then also kind of seeing what the other cities were doing, especially, I think of Detroit. They're definitely a few steps ahead of us. They were kind of like they're like our big sister. We're like watching what they're doing. They're doing everything on a larger scale, and also so generous with their time and advice. So that, yeah, just kind of normalizing what we're all kind of going through. And I think home repair is kind of having a moment. Everybody is seeing the benefits and how cost effective it is, and just all the different benefits for a city. So, all those things coming together and kind of helping me, just as a new manager of a home repair program, understand what I'm getting ready to encounter, and different strategies that cities have done to address that. So yeah, it just really gets your creative mind thinking, and it's really nice to be able to kind of borrow some ideas. A real concrete one was that a couple cities, Atlanta and Baltimore are also using Neighborly. I've seen a couple people mention Neighborly, and that is a software we use. um, I will say it's better than a spreadsheet. That is what I say about Neighborly. Um, but just kind of seeing how are they using this software that we are now using, and what other software options are there? I think we're all kind of dealing with how to gather our data, how to store our data, how to best analyze our data. And I think a lot of us at cities we are just using spreadsheets because sometimes that is the best and only way that we can make it happen. It's one step above, writing it out on a piece of paper. So we're just improving more and more and more. Um, so yeah, I think the peer network has been invaluable. Um, and it didn't end. It did not end at the end of our series. So that has been a very pleasant surprise, is that we have continued to keep in touch, and there are resources available, webinars, etc. So yes, it is definitely a wonderful use of our time, and has been a great asset. What
Thank
a
you both so much for the kind words. We're so glad that the network has been valuable and that it continues to, lead to these helpful exchanges. And we're have gotten some questions in actually, and they're perfectly aligned with this conversation around data collection. Actually, it sounds like folks really want to hear about data collection and how both communities are kind of tracking completion or success of loan and grant programs, like once they're awarded. And also just any kind of lessons or takeaways through the data collection process. And I know Nefertiti, you said that Austin is, going to be working on this in the future regarding data collection. But McGinn, if you wanted to maybe start on that.
I think with data collection, it's helped us kind of target where we're going to work in the city, and it's helped us distribute funding. And it's helped our partners coordinate with each other in terms of where they are working. Our partners are really ingenious in how they set their program design. They split up the city into basically in half. And so now we don't have that duplication where one agency is walking out the door and the other agency is walking up. Like, oh, you guys are here too. That was something that Karen Black, through her research and through her assessment, discovered. And so now I think with this data and what we're seeing in terms of what needs are and what funding is available, we can collaborate on a case intentionally as opposed to accidentally. And through that network communication, that also is now possible.
I would just say, I think we have a lot of data, but what it tells us primarily where people are being served and who is being served. That's great. What I really want to know is what we're not collecting consistently enough is the impact as well as the quality of the repairs. Occasionally, we will do surveys to see how well their experience was, right? But we don't do it consistently enough. So we need to establish systems where people continuously are giving us there's a feedback loop, and so we know um, how well they receive the service as well as the quality. And that's one thing that I'm really concerned about is the quality. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I want to know um, not just seeing pictures, but I really want to hear and have the data on are people satisfied with the quality of the repairs. And then we also need to do better data collection so that we can understand where are there areas of improvement. And primarily for me, there's two areas of improvement. How do we address those long waiting lines? But I need something and I don't have, so we're working on that now. We have a meeting next week to discuss that. But again, I don't have a solve for it. And then the other thing is I want people to know where they are in the waiting list. People have no idea, right? And so we're going to be working on those two things. So we have plenty of data, but not all of the information that I want to examine the impact and the quality.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Moving to applications and accessibility to applications for homeowners. And I know that's one of the objectives of a lot of these centralized intake systems or more coordination is to really reduce the barriers and the burden for households who are applying for assistance. So I'm wondering if you might, either of you might want to talk about how you get the word out about programs and how you may have tweaked application processes to be easier for homeowners.
I'm glad to talk about that because that is definitely something we're focused on a lot right now with the launch of the new 211 home repair hotline. Part of Metro United Way's program development was to come up with what Karen Black calls an expression of interest. And so what the discussion has been around, where does that intake pre-screen stop and where does that agency where the case was referred to, where does that begin? Do they just ask questions and rely on self-attestation and then that agency, they gather the income verification documents? So that sort of that line where that handoff is has been a point of sort of discussion, negotiation, trying to kind of figure out the sweet spot. But what we had seen in the past was someone who is looking for home repair. They will put an application in at Habitat, at New Directions, and with the city. And then they will call us at once a month, in rotation. And then historically, on July 1st of that's the beginning of the fiscal year here in Louisville, everyone will line up around the building and they will apply for home repairs. And we stopped taking applications in 2022, 4 years ago. And July 1st, we had people coming here. So, just really still trying to redirect people is a work in progress. I'm going to turn off my video because my internet is jumpy right now. And that 211 call center, they are already an established entity here in the city. So it's actually been a pretty easy lift to get people to call 211 and then just getting that consistent message out to all of our partners, all of our code enforcement officers, all of our Office of Social Service folks. And I think given the volume of calls that the 211 home repair hotline is experiencing, it sounds like that word is definitely getting out. And the goal is just to reduce that running around for folks so they are not calling and checking on all their applications and all their various stages of application. Um, and then people.
We might be losing Megan, unfortunately, but I think we have time for one final question before we will wrap up.
People get confused. Where do they even apply? So still going to be some for our homeowners.
Okay, so one final question, and that will be for you, Nefertiti, and the question is thinking about the impact of these new investments in neighborhoods, specifically ones that you have been targeting in the anti-displacement work. And if you are providing resources, to them, the values of their homes might go up following the assistance. And so, how are you thinking about kind of keeping for the rental, like small landlord program that you were talking about, but also just in homes in general? How are you thinking about the impact on the housing market, kind of more broadly?
That's a really great question that I don't have an easy solve for at the moment. Certainly, I will say the way that we design the programs, depending on the level of investment, there are affordability periods that are locked in, both if you're a homeowner and for the small landlord program. So there's an affordability period that is locked in there, but we know the biggest risk is when we have a demo reconstruct, because once that's up, and these are for homeowners who they have no mortgage, well, little to no mortgage whatsoever. But this is a conversation that we are having as we speak. We have someone in our department who is working on economic mobility and then assessing our programs to understand, are we negatively impacting homeowners or positively impacting them with the investments that are being made. And so that is something that we are aware of. It's on our radar, and hopefully in the future I can have an answer to how we are trying to solve for the appreciated values that the homeowners face.
Yeah, thank you so much for that thoughtful reply. So we are right at time right now. I just want to thank our panelists so much for the insightful discussion on how they're approaching these challenges, overcoming challenges, and these new, strategies that they've been employing in their home repair programs. I want to thank Martha for her introductory remarks. We are so excited and proud to continue to support the work that you both are doing, and the work of our ongoing community of practice in this area, and just thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We're glad to see so many questions, so much interest. Please do feel free to reach out to us. I can share my email address, but also we have an Ask the Lab feature on our website where you can go and submit any questions and we will get back to you. A real person will get back to you quickly. And we look forward to continuing this work on home repair. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day. Take care.